Japan's massive money experiment is over. Now what?
Since the end of World War II, Japan has been ground zero for some of the biggest experiments in economics.
Since the end of World War II, Japan has been ground zero? You couldn't find a better way to phrase that? That's crazy. That's a crazy turn of phrase.
Now, Japan's central bank has decided it's time to end its latest experiment.
Bro, I made Ari go here. We were in Japan. She was like, all right, I've been kind of planning things, like where I wanted to go, different restaurants and stuff. It's like, where do you want to go? And I was like, I want to go to Japan's central bank. So we took one of our days before we left, and I just stood in front of this building. You can't do anything there, but this is where I went.
So how did Japan decide to manage its economy so differently from the rest of the world?
Japanese growth hasn't always been this stagnant. At one point, the economy was growing so fast that it looked like it was about to overtake the US as the world's biggest.
I mean, again, if you go back to the 80s, I think I've talked about this before, I've shown some clips, but like, if you look at like movies and culture from the 80s, the Japanese are always like shown as like villains buying things. All the cyberpunk stuff shows Japan running the world in the future. Everyone was so sure that Japan was gonna keep growing at the same rate and just dominate everything corporate, which is very funny until they had their massive bubble burst. Die Hard. Die Hard's a great example where it's like Nakatomi Plaza, the boss is Japanese, everything's getting bought by Japan.
In the late 1980s, Japan's economy actually accounted for about 10% of world's total economy.
Sheesh!
楽しかったよね。
It was
私
fun
たちの
back then.
時にはそんなに
A huge bubble is fun. So what we're gonna say, it's gonna be one of you in one of these interviews. I'm talking about 2021. And you're talking about, man, it was fun back then. I had Dogecoin and Nvidia. It was so fun. Except, you know what? We're not even getting the fun part. We're actually all fucking miserable. That's crazy.
What was crazier was the real estate price. For example, the land price of Tokyo's Imperial Palace was said to be equivalent to the price of the state of California.
Then the bust came.
Yeah, I've heard that many times, where the palace is worth more than all of California. It's like the example they always use for an obvious real estate bubble.
バブルは所詮弾けるんです。いつかはですね。
Authority.
Sorry. Oof, yikes.
バブルは所詮弾けるんです。いつか。
Sorry, bro. I do have to cut you off there. That's not how it works. Sorry, little bro. Have fun staying poor. Stop with the FUD. Things are different this time. It always goes up. There's no risk. There's no danger. And I think you're just jealous. He looks jealous.
As things got worse, the Bank of Japan followed the typical playbook for central banks, lowering interest rates. You can see the Fed, for example, slashed rates to cope with the fallout from the 2008 financial crisis. But the BOJ, for more than 20 years, kept at it with its almost flat line.
I mean, they went negative, which is where you have to pay to put your money in the bank. Like, you know how if you have money in a bank, you earn a little bit of interest? If your money's in the bank in Japan when they have negative interest rates, it takes a little bit away. That is how low their interest rates were to try and get you to spend. A bonus of that isn't mentioned, hopefully, well, maybe it's mentioned in this video. This is what's always ignored, is that a country like Japan has the most government debt of any country in the world in terms of debt to GDP. And when interest rates are low, the government can afford to pay the bills on that debt. They can pay the interest every month. But if interest rates start to rise, then the government suddenly is spending more on interest payments than on their military, than on their social security, than on everything. That's the scary part. And that is why they can't raise it too much. That's why the US government can't keep our rates high for very long. We have to slash them down pretty soon because otherwise the interest payments get too big to manage. Is Japan screwed when you factor in birth rate? Yes. Japan is screwed for many, many reasons. Demographically, they're fucked. Government debt-wise, they're fucked. There's just many, many problems. They don't really have an excellent way out of it. Maybe a massive, massive productivity boom with AI or something can help get over this. I don't know, but what's wrong with a lower birth rate? If your birth rate is lower than the replacement rate, as in your population is declining, it's really bad because as people get older, you want a pyramid style population where you have fewer old people and a lot of young people to support them. But they have a lot of old people and few young people being born, which ends up with a very old society. Old people spend less, work less, and consume more than they create. And so it ends up with like a really decaying society, type beat, you know? You don't need to add type beat. The Zoomers will still listen. I don't know. Sometimes I start talking about interest rates and I think they don't. But if I had type beat, maybe I keep a couple of them hooked. All I gotta do is get one person to be like, you know what? Maybe I get it now. And then they learn a little bit more and they start talking about it. And then later on, they're interested. Do you understand? It's all step one. I don't want to seem like I'm just saying jargon. I hate jargon in economics and finance and business. I think jargon is used to exclude.
Ways to invest their money in Japan. Many ended up looking abroad for better returns, so much so that Japan became the biggest foreign holder of U.S. Treasury debt, overtaking China.
Yeah, it kind of sucks for us. Japan used to be, as he said there, the largest buyer of our debt. So when the U.S. government wants to buy a tank we can't afford, we issue an IOU and we need somebody to give us money now so we can pay them money later. And the number one country to do that was Japan. It used to be China for a long time. Then China's obviously not pro-US anymore, doesn't want to buy our debt. And so it's been Japan, but now Japan can't do it anymore. What can't the US afford? We can't afford shit. US can't afford anything. We are so deeply in debt, bro. In terms of actually afford, we can't afford shit. We're still gonna buy it though. We're just gonna leverage the future to do it. Just print money. If you just print money, you will get inflation. So what they do is they issue IOUs. They do debt. If they I want to buy this tank, I can't afford it. We'll print some money and buy it. That will lead to inflation very quick. But if we say we'll issue a treasury bill, it's debt, take it from someone else, and then you don't get the inflation when you buy the tank. But then you have so much debt you can't afford it. Are there any countries not in debt? I can't think of any that are not in debt. But it's a scale problem, you know? If you're at like 50% of GDP, fine. If you're at 80% of GDP, getting kind of bad. When you're at 100% of GDP, like your debt's equal to your whole yearly GDP, that's a real problem. We just passed that in America. And once you're at Japan's level where it's like 240% of GDP, it's like beyond saving. They will never, ever, ever pay that back. It's an end game of like trying to keep the interest low and trying not to get massive inflation as they print their way. How to read the deficit myth? I've read the deficit myth. It's fucking trash. It's good as toilet paper. I'm not going to get into it. I will say one thing about the deficit myth by Stephanie Kelton. Okay, it's fucking right over there. I read it. I'm gonna say it in a way high IQ people can understand. There's a Rick and Morty episode where Pluto is being shrunk so much that it's no longer going to be a planet. This rich guy is mining Pluto so it will no longer be a planet. And they need a dumb patsy to come out on stage and on TV and say, Pluto's great. Pluto's a planet. This is Stephanie Kelton as the ship sinks. This is her coming out and saying, yeah, we can spend as much as we want and there will never be consequences. This is her saying there's no problems. Every country that has had problems, I'm categorizing them different, arbitrarily. But the ones that haven't had problems yet, they're in this category. And that's proof of my completely unmathematical model. And there's a lot of people that love to jump on this and say the MT is the solution, it's the future. It's gibberish. I mean, anyway, this is what it is. And we are dealing with the fucking problems of this line of thought. I thought it would go up considering it sounded like goodish news, but hasn't really budged. What does it mean for the yen? I mean, the yen's been on a slide. Yeah, the yen has been devalued. Again, this move in interest rates is really more of a signal than anything real. Going from negative 0.01 to positive 0 to 0.1 is not an absolute value very much. It's still like the world's lowest interest rates. It's more of like, hey, we're going to try and get them up. So it's not going to make any major moves just yet. I think they're not going to believe in it. What this means for regular people is that if you go visit Japan, your money goes a long way. That's what I'll say. Without getting too into the weeds, if you are a visitor to Japan, not a Japanese citizen, I mean, these past year or two have been just like generationally good times to travel there because the exchange rate has been so good. The yen is so devalued. The dollar's been relatively strong. You just get a lot for a little. My meals are like $6 everywhere. Yeah, exactly. It's a real good time to travel. And, you know, you're actually helping the economy by being a tourist. So it's not even a bad thing. Heard Japanese people are tired of foreigners? Oh, I'm sure. Of course they would, Lamau. Foreigners are coming en masse and eating luxury meals for cheap. Japanese people, meanwhile, going through it. Seems like every week I know someone's going, yeah, but again, I can understand their frustration, but like the tourist that's coming is not the cause of this problem. It's their government's decisions that have led to this situation. As long as you're not an asshole, like the tourist is coming and spending money in the economy. It is helping. The tourist didn't like set the exchange rate, you know? It's not the tourist that's printing money on the government side. But yeah, that is why they'd be grumpy. I totally agree. I totally agree, of course. And also, some tourists are assholes, right? At the end of the day, some tourists don't come with any respect for the country. And like me, I'm classy. What I'll do is I'll come in, I'll wear a giant gold Rolex on each hand, 2 thick wads of cash, $1, 1 yen, and then I'll walk around saying, hey, pores, and I'll wave it around, and then I won't speak any Japanese. I'm not gonna learn any of that. I'll only speak English. What I'll do is I'll just say things, because I want them to understand me, so I'll say it loudly and slowly. Where is McDonald's? And so that's how they know that I'm respectful, that I'm treating their country with respect, that I am representing my country well. I'm building, and that's how I do it. And that's why I think it's fine. And then I'm like, where's the anime? Because I obviously, as a traveler to Japan, want to know all about anime. Like, is anime real here? You guys know Naruto? Where are the subtitles? Japanese person talking to me in a taxi that I didn't pay for. Where are the subtitles? I don't watch dubs. No, understand, I don't watch dubs, but I don't see any subs. I'm a real Japanophile. The authentic ramen shop here plays 100% anime music, and I think it's so funny and also sad that I know it's from anime. You're the target audience, okay? It worked. You show up and ate there and knew the songs, bro. It worked.